high-end boutique manager thought she could belittle Sandra Bullock for looking too casual, never realizing who she was dealing with. But when Keanu Reeves walked in, he did something that left everyone in stunned silence. And trust me, you won't believe how this story ends. What happened next turned into a scandal no one saw coming. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from. And if you love gripping stories like this, make sure to subscribe. We've got something special coming your way tomorrow. The boutique where luxury ruled. Eloise Paris wasn't just a store, it was a sanctuary for the ultra-wealthy. A place where status reigned supreme and ordinary people, they simply didn't belong. Its discreet facade concealed a world of pure opulence, leather-upholstered lounges, imported rugs, and exclusive designer pieces that only the elite could afford. The very air carried a sophisticated, woody scent, and champagne was served, but only to those deemed worthy. Soft jazz played in the background, whispering an unspoken rule: if you have to ask the price, you don't belong here. And at the heart of it all stood Helena, the boutique's manager, a woman with a gaze as sharp as a dagger. She wasn't just selling clothes. She was selling status. And she guarded the store's exclusivity with unwavering devotion. So when the doorbell chimed and an unfamiliar woman stepped inside, Helena's instincts kicked in. The woman who didn't belong. Anywhere else, she might have gone unnoticed. A simple white hoodie, plain sweatpants, and a black cap partially obscuring her face. Casual, unremarkable. But here, in this temple of luxury, she stood out, and not in a good way. Helena, in the midst of adjusting a diamond necklace for one of her VIP clients, froze. She immediately knew the type. A tourist. One of those women who wandered in just to look around, maybe snap a few photos, and then leave without spending a cent. That would not be happening in her store. Helena moved swiftly, stepping toward the woman with quiet authority. Behind the counter, Clara, one of the boutique's assistants, watched closely. She already knew what was coming. The audience, those who knew the truth, could already feel the injustice unfolding. Sandra Bullock, unbothered. Sandra browsed the store at a leisurely pace, her fingers brushing over delicate fabrics, admiring the craftsmanship. She loved fashion, always had. But what she despised was the game of superiority that often came with it. A voice interrupted her thoughts. "Can I help you?" Helena's tone was polite, but cold, an undercurrent of condescension woven into every syllable. Sandra turned to face her. "Oh, thank you. I'm just looking." Helena's perfectly trained smile didn't falter, but her decision had already been made. "I see. Just so you know, we carry only exclusive, made-to-measure pieces. Nothing here is placed on display by chance." The message was clear: this place isn't for you. Sandra pressed her lips together slightly. "I imagine it's not," she replied. Helena blinked. That wasn't the reaction she expected. Maybe the woman had gotten the hint and would leave now. But no. She stayed. Then, as if deliberately testing the manager's patience, Sandra reached for a highly exclusive dress from the newest collection, a piece with a price tag that only a select few could afford. That was enough for Helena. She turned sharply and gestured discreetly to Clara. "Keep an eye on that woman," she murmured. Clara hesitated. "But why?" Helena sighed, as if the answer was obvious. "Clara, she might ruin the experience for our real customers." Clara didn't reply, but something felt wrong. Because the wrong person was being judged. And she had no idea what was coming next. "Do you think I can't afford it?" Sandra Bullock's unexpected response left everyone in shock. The tension inside the luxury boutique was rising, but Helena, the manager, was determined to maintain control. As Sandra Bullock casually examined the dresses, Helena's patience wore thin. Her sharp gaze scanned Sandra's simple hoodie, sweatpants, and cap. Everything about her screamed out of place. Still, Sandra picked up an elegant black silk dress, a piece worth more than most people's monthly salaries. Helena exhaled slowly before approaching, every step calculated. She stopped beside Sandra, looking her up and down, not with admiration, but with thinly veiled contempt. Then, with a polite yet venomous smile, she spoke. "Are you sure you want to try on that dress?" Sandra raised an eyebrow. "My style?" Helena's smile didn't falter, but her posture stiffened slightly. "Yes. We have more casual pieces. Something that might make you feel more comfortable." Behind the counter, Clara, the young assistant, felt her heart race. She had seen Helena do this before, but this time, something was different. Sandra gave a knowing smile. "You think I wouldn't be comfortable in this?" For the second time that day, Helena found herself caught off guard. Something about this woman's gaze triggered a small alarm inside her. "I just meant that. You think I can't afford it?" Sandra's voice was calm, controlled, but the impact of her words was devastating. A hush fell over the boutique. Some of the staff looked away, pretending to adjust shelves. The VIP clients on the plush leather sofas stopped their whispered conversations, now watching with keen interest. Clara held her breath. But Helena? She wouldn't be intimidated. Not at all. "Ma'am," she said, her tone dripping with superiority, "I was simply suggesting something more appropriate." Sandra studied her for a moment. And then, to everyone's surprise, she laughed. Soft. Controlled. But unmistakable. Helena felt a chill run down her spine. "I see. Thanks for the suggestion." Sandra continued exploring the boutique. But now, it was different. It wasn't just casual browsing anymore. It was a test. A test of Helena's patience. And she was failing miserably. The breaking point. Sandra's fingers trailed over the sleek fabric of the black silk dress, an exquisite couture piece with an eye-watering price tag. Helena's eyes narrowed. She needed to put this woman in her place. Steeling herself, she walked over, stopping just beside Sandra. This time, she didn't even try to hide the condescension in her smile. "You know, this particular design requires a certain posture, a grace that brings out its natural elegance." Her eyes flicked from Sandra's baggy sweatshirt to the cap partially hiding her face. Then, she let out a quiet, amused chuckle. "I could suggest something more appropriate for your profile." It was a direct insult. Sandra caught it immediately. And she smiled. Because now, she knew, Helena had absolutely no idea who she was talking to. But Sandra wasn't done playing yet. Holding up the dress, she turned to Helena. "And what exactly do you mean by that?" Helena's expression remained composed, but there was a dangerous glint in her eyes. "Just that this kind of piece is designed for women who know how to wear it." Sandra's smile faded. "Women who know how to wear it." Helena nodded, her voice carrying a deliberate edge. "Yes. Women who understand haute couture. Who recognize the craftsmanship, the fabrics." She made a vague, dismissive gesture. "Women who don't need help understanding the value of a dress like this." A heavy silence settled between them. Sandra took a slow, deep breath. She was used to being treated like a Hollywood star. But today, in this boutique, she was being treated like nothing. And that said everything about Helena. So, without looking away, she asked, "You think I don't understand?" Helena's fake smile widened ever so slightly. "I think some people mistake this boutique for just any store." Sandra let out a small, amused laugh. Helena's disdain was crystal clear now. "So, in your opinion, I shouldn't be here?" Helena tilted her head, feigning innocence. "Oh, I would never say that." Then, after a brief pause, she added with a syrupy sweet smirk, "But some of our clients might feel uncomfortable." Now, the attack was direct. She wasn't just saying Sandra didn't belong. She was saying she was making others uncomfortable. Sandra pressed her lips together for a moment. And then, with a slow sigh, she said, "I see." Helena thought she had one. She thought Sandra would feel humiliated and leave. But then, something unexpected happened. Sandra locked eyes with her and, in a voice so eerily calm that it sent a shiver through the boutique, said the one thing that made everyone freeze. Funny, because when I walked in, no one offered me champagne. The moment everything changed. Silence. Absolute, deafening silence. Every assistant exchanged uneasy glances. The VIP clients, who had been whispering just moments before, stopped talking altogether. Because everyone knew, important clients were always welcomed with a glass of champagne. But Sandra Bullock? She got nothing. For the first time, Helena's confidence cracked. Her face went pale, just for a split second, before she scrambled to recover. Oh, that must have been a mistake. She forced a laugh. Of course, I can have a glass brought to you right away. Sandra smiled. But this time, it wasn't a friendly smile. No need. Her voice was soft, but it was sharp like a blade. I've already seen everything I needed to see. Then, before Helena could stammer out a response, Sandra turned, not to Helena, but to Clara, the young assistant who had been silent the entire time. Do you think this dress would look good on me? Clara hesitated. She glanced between Sandra and Helena. And then, she took a deep breath. Yes. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. It would look incredible. Helena felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. And in that moment, she realized something terrible. She was no longer in control. Because Sandra Bullock was about to turn this entire boutique upside down. And nothing could stop her now. Luxury isn't for everyone. The boutique manager's words came back to haunt her. Moments later, Keanu Reeves walked in. The white sweatshirt. The black cap. She refused to leave. And worse, she was turning the game around. First, she had the audacity to question Helena. Then, that sharp remark about the champagne had sent ripples through the room. And now, Clara, her own assistant, had the nerve to contradict her. In front of everyone. Helena could feel it. Control was slipping through her fingers. And she couldn't stand losing. So, she did what she did best. She attacked. The last attempt to humiliate her. Helena took a step forward, masking her frustration with a cold, calculated smile. Well, since you seem so interested in that dress, I'll have one of our sales assistants help you in the fitting room. The words were laced with undeniable condescension. It wasn't a kind offer. It was a challenge. If you insist on embarrassing yourself, I'll make sure everyone watches you do it. Sandra caught on immediately. But before she could respond, Helena turned away. Straight to Clara. Clara, please take this piece to the fitting room and see if we have an appropriate size. Sandra raised an eyebrow. Oh, she knew exactly what that phrase meant. Helena wasn't just questioning her ability to afford the dress. She was subtly implying that Sandra didn't even have the right body type for it. That she wasn't refined enough. That she didn't belong in this world. The air in the boutique shifted. A few VIP clients exchanged knowing smirks. Not because they actually found it funny, but because this humiliation scene? It was too good to look away. Sandra took a slow, deep breath, crossing her arms. She still held the dress. And now? The stares weren't just on her. They were on Helena, too. Some clients seemed to enjoy the spectacle. Others, however, they looked uncomfortable. Because deep down, they knew if this woman was being treated like this, it could happen to anyone. Helena realized this. But her arrogance wouldn't let her stop. The final blow. She doubled down. You know, ma'am, Helena said in a falsely casual tone, we have a more affordable store just 3 blocks from here. Perhaps you'd find something there that better suits your style. The air in the boutique turned ice cold. Even Clara held her breath. Sandra let out a low, disbelieving laugh. Did you just suggest I go to a cheaper store? Helena didn't back down. She smiled. I just think some clients prefer something more practical and comfortable. Then, she delivered the line that sealed her fate. After all, luxury isn't for everyone. Silence. Thick. Unbearable. Even the VIP clients, who had watched with amusement just moments ago, didn't know how to react. The sales assistants? They looked away, nervous. Clara? She felt her stomach drop. Sandra? She was still smiling. But this time, it was dangerous. Then, she did something unexpected. She draped the dress over her arm. And without a word, she started walking. Straight to the register. The moment Helena lost. Helena frowned, her patience wearing thin. What are you doing? Sandra stopped in front of the counter. She looked at the register. Then, she looked straight at Helena. I'll take it. The entire boutique held its breath. Helena let out a scoffing laugh. Really? Sandra nodded. Yes. After all, luxury may not be for everyone. And then, she took off her sunglasses. But I'm pretty sure it's for me. The boutique stopped breathing. One of the VIP clients gasped. Another whispered in shock. Oh my God. Because now, everyone recognized her. Sandra Bullock. The Hollywood star. One of the most powerful women in the film industry. A woman with a net worth of over $250 million. Helena felt the color drained from her face. For the first time, she felt something she had never experienced before. Pure, raw horror. She had just publicly humiliated one of the most famous and influential women in the world. And now, everyone in the boutique knew it. But before anyone could react, the boutique doors opened. And what happened next? No one would ever forget. Then he walked in. Helena was frozen. Her eyes locked onto Sandra Bullock. The reality of what she had just done? It still hadn't fully hit her. The VIP clients were speechless. The sales assistants? Too afraid to move. Clara? She held her breath. Because she could feel it. Something even bigger was about to happen. Then, the boutique doors opened again. A soft chime. But this time, the sound felt different. And then, he walked in. The store collectively stopped breathing. He moved with slow, firm steps. Keanu Reeves. His long black coat swung slightly as he walked. His slightly messy hair gave him that effortless charm. But his eyes weren't surprised. Because he already knew exactly what had happened here. And he knew exactly who he was looking for. Without hesitation, he crossed the boutique, not sparing a single glance at anyone else. Helena felt her body tense. The VIP clients covered their mouths, stunned. Clara swallowed hard. And then, Keanu stopped. Right in front of Sandra. And without saying a word, he hugged her. A hug that was strong. Real. The embrace of a long-awaited reunion. Sandra hugged him back, a soft smile forming on her lips. Helena? She felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Because now, it wasn't just Sandra Bullock. It was Keanu Reeves. And at that moment, she realized. She had just made the worst mistake of her life. Keanu Reeves had just embraced her, and Helena's world began to crumble. It wasn't just Sandra Bullock anymore. It was also Keanu Reeves. And he had just embraced her like an old friend. It's been too long, Bullock, he murmured, pulling back slightly to look at her. Sandra smiled. Far too long, Keanu. And then, he looked around. He took in everything. The lavish boutique. The tense sales assistants. Clara, standing motionless, her hands gripping the counter. And finally, his eyes met Helena's. She felt her body freeze. Because at that moment, Keanu Reeves knew exactly what had happened. He didn't need to ask. He had seen Sandra's expression. He had seen the tension in the employees' faces. He had noticed Clara's nervous stare. And then, he spoke. The words that sealed her fate. Keanu turned back to Sandra. His voice was calm. Too calm. But dripping with undeniable irony. I hope they treated you well. The impact was instant. The VIP clients glanced at Helena. Clara bit her lower lip, tense. The sales assistants held their breath. Because everyone knew the answer. Everyone knew that Sandra Bullock had been humiliated. And now? Keanu Reeves knew it, too. Helena tried to speak. She tried to form words. But nothing came out. Her entire body felt paralyzed. Because it didn't matter what she said now. The damage was already done. Sandra let out a slow, quiet laugh. She looked Helena straight in the eyes. And then she spoke. Oh yes, they were unforgettable. Her tone wasn't angry. It wasn't spiteful. It was calm. Absolute. Unshakable. Like the final blow of a verdict. Helena felt her face burn. She wanted to say something. She needed to say something. But there were no more excuses. No way out. And then the worst thing possible happened. The words that broke the boutique. One of the VIP clients, an impeccably dressed blonde woman, turned to a sales assistant and murmured, just loud enough for everyone to hear. If they treat Sandra Bullock like this, imagine how they treat the rest of us. The boutique felt the impact. The words rippled through the air like an unstoppable wave. And in that moment, Helena understood. Her career. Her reputation. The status she had spent years building. It was about to crumble. The final blow. Then her phone vibrated. Helena flinched. The weight of every eye in the boutique was on her. She took a deep breath, forcing a polite, shaky smile. Miss Bullock. She cleared her throat. Her voice was unsteady. I had no idea who you were. Sandra crossed her arms. And that should justify something? Helena opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Because for the first time, she realized how ridiculous she sounded. No, Helena tried to recover. It was a mistake. A misunderstanding. Keanu raised an eyebrow slightly. A misunderstanding? The boutique seemed to hold its breath. His tone was low, but it carried the weight of a sledgehammer. Helena swallowed hard. She took a deep breath, desperate to regain control. I just wanted to ensure our experience was selective. Sandra let out a quiet, amused laugh. Oh, so now you get to decide who deserves respect? Helena felt her breath hitch. She knew. She had lost. But she still hadn't seen the worst. Keanu watched. Not interrupting. But his expression said everything. Justice had been served. The sales assistants? They no longer looked at Helena with respect. The VIP clients? They no longer admired her. And the boutique, once her kingdom, now felt like a tomb. The fall of a queen. Helena's phone vibrated again. She didn't need to check. She already knew. Somewhere, far beyond the boutique's gilded walls, where wealth and status dictated reality, a storm had already begun. The boutique owner had seen the videos. The footage, millions of eyes watching, millions of mouths whispering. Her career? Ruined. Her reputation? shattered beyond repair. For years, she had carefully constructed her image, a woman of authority, of elegance, of unshakable control. And in a single afternoon, it had all come crashing down. Her hands trembled as she clutched her phone, the device suddenly heavier than it had ever felt before. Her heart pounded like a war drum as she stared at the screen, watching the notification light flicker like a distant warning sign. Then, the message appeared. The one that would seal her fate. "Helena, we have a serious problem. I need to speak with you immediately." The boutique owner. Her breath hitched. She could already hear the icy disappointment in his voice. She could picture his expression, a mixture of disbelief and rage, the realization that his prized boutique, the pinnacle of luxury, had been reduced to a public disgrace. She opened her mouth, as if to protest to no one in particular, but the words died before they could form. Because there was nothing left to say. But before she could react, something else happened. The walkout. The first to move was a VIP client. An elegant woman, draped in designer couture, the kind of customer Helena would have once bent over backward to impress. She stood up, her movements deliberate, the quiet rustling of silk filling the tense silence. Then, she reached for her luxury handbag. And in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, she spoke. "I don't shop at places that mistreat their customers. I'm leaving." And without looking back, she walked out. The silence was suffocating. The very air in the boutique seemed to thicken, pressing against Helena's chest, making it hard to breathe. She swallowed hard. Because now, she wasn't just losing Sandra Bullock's and Keanu Reeves's respect. She was losing everyone's. Then, another client stood. Then another. And another. A quiet murmur rippled through the boutique. An unease that spread like a contagion. The sales assistants exchanged uncertain glances, the realization creeping in, this was no longer just an uncomfortable moment. This was an exodus. And suddenly, the boutique, the very space Helena had ruled like a queen, felt like a courtroom. And she was the accused. Standing trial. Alone. The final blow. Then, Clara moved. The young assistant, the one who had stood frozen, watching everything unfold with wide, unblinking eyes. She took a deep breath. And without looking directly at Helena, she did something that sent shockwaves through the room. She reached up and removed her name tag. Then, with a steady hand, she placed it on the counter. "I can't work here anymore." The sound of the small metal tag hitting the glass was deafening. Helena's breath hitched. Her jaw tightened. "Clara." Her voice came out low, almost pleading. But Clara, she didn't hesitate. She turned to Sandra and Keanu. And then, she did something no one expected. She lifted her chin, squared her shoulders, and said, "May I walk you both to the exit?" A beat of silence. Then, Sandra smiled. "Of course." And with that, the boutique doors opened once again. And the manager, who once prided herself on deciding who belonged and who didn't, now stood in paralyzed silence. As everyone walked out, leaving her behind. But the worst was still to come. And Helena wasn't ready for what happened next. A new beginning. Across the city. Far away from the cold, soulless walls of the boutique. A small, quiet cafe sat nestled in the warm glow of the afternoon sun. Inside, Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves sat at a cozy wooden table, the scent of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. Beside them, Clara. Now, the former boutique assistant. She still looked a little overwhelmed, as if struggling to process the events of the day. Sandra took a sip of her coffee. Then, she turned to Clara with a soft smile. "So, Clara, what's next for you?" Clara hesitated, shrugging slightly, a little shy. I don't know. Maybe I'll look for something new. Somewhere I can actually learn and grow. Keanu smiled. A knowing, gentle smile. Well, turns out I know a few people who could help with that. Clara's eyes widened. Really? Sandra chuckled. We like helping the ones who deserve it. Then, Sandra's phone buzzed. A message from a friend. She opened it and read it aloud. The boutique manager has been officially fired. The video now has 20 million views. Sandra and Keanu exchanged a knowing look. Then, Sandra said the final words that would close this story forever. She set down her coffee, her gaze distant but unwavering. And then, with quiet certainty, she spoke. Some people think luxury is power. But real power is knowing how to treat people with respect. Keanu nodded. Clara smiled. And across the city, in a silent apartment, blinds drawn, phone screen dim, Helena sat alone. Because status wasn't eternal. The judgment of the world was swift and unforgiving. And above all, luxury was nothing without dignity. Love this story? We have more that will warm your heart. Click the screen to explore more stories of hope, compassion, and resilience.